So there's no such thing as I don't think a quote unquote normal relationship. People find people that they can live with in despite of and maybe even because of these flaws, even shared flaws. And something else occurs to me too, when you're talking about one person sees a flaw, that's not necessarily a flaw for someone else. I think Plato, and that's my arguments with Plato. Plato used to say, we see something beautiful and that can grow into love. But I don't think so. I think that that which we love, we find beautiful. I don't think that that which is beautiful we necessarily love. Very often not. Very often the opposite. But if, love is separate from these things and companionship is separate from this. So it gets back to the mind coming first. Your mind determines what you perceive and how you perceive it. And your mind can look at your partner, your friends, your pets, your world with love, or with not love, with fear, with resentment, with envy, with sloth. We can go through all of the seven deadly sins if you like, and they're all in there.
Yeah.
So I think that's part of it is what's coming out of us. What kind of vibes are we? I'm just gonna sound like a hippie, aren't I? It's like what kind of vibes you send out into the universe, though, is really going to determine how you perceive the universe. And I think a lot of us are able to perceive beauty, perceive heart and soul, if we open ourselves to it, and if we're kind of giving that back. And that's going to override anything that someone will look from the outside and say, oh well, how could this person like that person when they're like this or that. Everybody can find somebody. Everybody likes somebody different, and there's always somebody that will understand you, and that's how we get friends. That's how we find friends that can. I mean, some of these get-togethers we have, normies could not handle it.
Yeah.
you know but that's part of the fun of having a group of people that can look past that. So I think for each other we don't really have these flaws, you know
Yeah.
um but we will for some, but you know so
When when we were having a conversation about music and artificial intelligence, and I was talking about like the tone of music,
hmm
um, and how like I was trying to sync up Jaffe's voice with artificial music, and it wasn't working out because he had flaws in his voice when he sang. You know,
right,
now
yeah,
the thing of it is like you can look at that as a flaw in a negative way, or you can look at it like the way Maestro would look at what do they call it, accentuating music.
uh-huh,
Like when you listen to these orchestras playing and they're playing these instruments, you know what I mean? They don't just like systematically put the notes out. Like they have to move their fingers a certain way and their voice has to change a certain way. It's
right,
not it's not a perfect tone that starts and finishes at the exact time that it's supposed to, you know what I mean?
right,
Yeah.
yeah,
So when you look at flaws, and you got to kind of look at it like that too. What you would consider flaws might not actually be a flaw. It could be just accenting,
right, right. It's the
accent.
blues, yeah. Well, that's there is that difference between the perfectly mechanically reproduced voice. And one of the big things that we musicians banter about, but a lot of people have talked about, is auto tuning. You probably heard of, and basically devices that allow, like, if you're a singer, well, or just not a singer, you sing or screech or yell into the microphone, and the computers basically give you perfect pitch and changes your voice so that what comes out the other end is perfect. And you can do this again with just about every instrument, not just the voice. And it allows you to produce these antiseptically perfect little bits of music, and some people like that, and I mean it's listenable. But there is those imperfections, those flaws, as you were saying, or imperfections that you get with. I mean, that's what things like jazz and the blues are all about. I mean, you can joke about how there aren't that many different actual tunes used in like some of these blues songs and stuff. Dun, 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 these 12-bar boogies and stuff.
Hmm.
But everyone plays it a little different. Everyone has their flaw. I mean, I love listening to these old blues singers from like the 1910s and 20s. I mean, these are not perfect voices, man. This is not, it would, and there would be no charm to it. There'd be no fun. And when you've got, and I think I was talking about it when we were discussing that, how when you're playing music with a bunch of guys, nobody sounds perfect, but part of the fun is everybody kind of adapts to everyone else. So it's kind of a synergistic kind of a thing.
Hmm.
And the next thing you know, you've got six guys playing a song that is nothing at all like you'd hear it on the album, not at all like it's written, but it's a really good version of the song.
Right.
So this is part of the fun of playing music. It's a little different. That's part of the fun of playing covers. I mean, um, we cover this song by Counting Crows called Remedy, which is a good song. I like our version better because we do it like very heavy rock, little touch of heavy metal to it. And but when the album comes out, you'll be able to compare. There's not going to be an album coming out, but you know what I mean. It's fun to take it and make it your own, and that's going to mean by definition you're going to change it, so it's going to be quote unquote flawed. But yeah, and again, it comes down to what you want, and I'm sure the AI could be adjusted to add flaws to it. What the heck? I'm not trying to make an argument about human versus machine music, because at the end of the day, the music itself, that's
Yeah.
one thing. Um, and my thing of it is, my interest really isn't in the music part. My interest is, I'm a hobbyist. I like to make the music. I don't really listen to much music. I play music, but I don't really listen to it much. That's kind of odd. I listen to almost no music.
I have to admit something that I'm guilty of. I was talking about Iron Maiden before. Um, I, I I love I love their studio version music. Like all their live stuff to me sucks,
Right?
but I love all the stuff they do in the studio. I'm guilty of it. And I love Iron Maiden, but I just like the stuff that
Yeah.
they do in the studio, and I know that it's cleaned up and doctored up and everything, but it just is, to me it sounds better.
Well, some bands do sound better that way. The Rolling Stones. I remember. I'm not a huge Stones fan. They've done some good songs. Um, but it's not. I might have like one or two albums or something. That's not. But it's like when I listen to them, I'm like, when they play in the studio, they sound like they're playing live, and when they play live, they sound like they're rehearsing.
Hmm.
They just had this, and then like 50 years later, and they're still going, and I'm like, I guess this is the sound they want, because obviously they've been playing for decades. They could play a little tighter if they wanted to, but it's what the fans expect, and so for them it was almost like their imperfection was their perfection.
Right.
That, and it's all in the sound you want, but I think that's, well, of course it's personal taste too, but I think it's also the band. But I always like the Studio Stone stuff better because it just sounded more well done. On the other hand, the first, sometimes, like the band Queen.
Yeah.
First time I heard Queen was the Live Killers album, which was great. But then I started listening to the studio albums, and I was like, whoa, this isn't nearly the same. Lacks the energy and this and that.
Yeah.
But I really liked their earliest albums, which were really cool. And then they kind of morphed into the art rock, and then they made The Game, which I was very disappointed with. I don't know if you followed Queen at all.
I uh I kind of gave up on them after they came out with that album that had oh god, what is it? It was the one for Highlander. The
Oh, I didn't. Once they started playing around with David Bowie, that was about the time when I was kind of losing interest in them musically. Um, the game came out and it was so commercial, which is not. I don't blame them. I mean, commercial. You maybe they're professional musicians, but another one bites the dust. Come on, these are
yeah.
the guys that did songs like Ogre Battle, March of the Black Queen. How Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yeah.
These rolling, sonic landscapes and no synthesizers. It was all done with guitar, with that amazing Brian May weird custom thing that him and his dad built in his garage or something.
hmm
That's how we got that guitar sound.
Well, I mean, when it comes to synthesizers and stuff too, like Iron Butterfly, I was big on Iron Butterfly, like you wouldn't believe, and that
They
was
did some
before
good
my
stuff.
time. Like
Yeah, they did some good stuff. They were a good band.
the the guy on there who did
Oh, the organs,
the
the
organs.
keyboards.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the organ. He was a genius. That man was going to college when he was a teenager. He was a genius, literally.
yeah, they were all really young. I remember they were like teenagers. They were like under 20, a lot of them,
hmm
and like that must have been amazing. You know.
Just it was really weird, and I got to see the video that they did for Inagata Devita. Like these guys were ahead of themselves. They were doing MTV stuff. You know what I mean? Like, have you ever
Yeah,
seen the original video for that?
I don't know that I did.
It is a
I don't
trip.
think
It it
I'll have to check it
it,
out.
it, it like they knew that eventually that was going to be seen on a video. So they had cameramen set up. They did all the psychedelics, everything, and they went through and they
Nice,
hit each musician.
nice.
I was like, wow. I mean, and this was before anything like that. You know what I mean? Like they knew that this was going to be on television, so they made sure that they had the cameras set up, everything. It was pretty cool. I think you can
Excellent.
find it on YouTube. I'm not quite sure.
I'm sure it's somewhere. I'm sure it's somewhere. I'll have to check that out. I actually saw an interesting video the other day. We're really off topic here, but that's okay. Um, we're gonna have to land soon anyway. But it was a video of Jimi Hendrix playing acoustic guitar, which I'd never even heard him doing any acoustic before. But yeah, he's a masterful musician. Masterful musician. There were
Oh,
some very talented people around at that time. It was a strange little time when you had many of these young artists were at that time, of course, it wasn't like today. And that's one of the advantages that a musician has today, is the audience reach. You can go on YouTube now or Bandcamp, and things like that. There are a lot more opportunities for young, talented people, or even old and talented people. I'm not going to be the ageist here, but for talented artists to put their work out in front of people. Of course, you're competing with 100 million other talented artists, but that's the name of the game. But back in the old days, the bad old days, if you were going to get any kind of exposure nationwide as a musician, you had to do it through the record companies, through the media outlet. And there was that time when the record companies had no idea about this new psychedelic rock, so they were basically, here you go, boys. Here's a contract that you've got long hair and you've got an organ. Kids seem to like that, and it's like you could inadvertently sign the Mozarts of their day. I mean, you had some brilliant musicians that had opportunities that they wouldn't have even just like a few decades later because the producers caught up with the slang. Some of the guys in the subculture got involved in production and got involved in administration. And the next thing you know, the whole thing becomes, like everything else in the music industry.